Hey, I know I'm supposed to eventually get around to finishing fucking Invincible Season 2, but I kind of find Invincible boring. And Invincible has upgraded from such aggressive dog shit that it's fun to make fun of the show to pretty fucking mediocre. And honestly, that's a good segue to the series I'm watching right now. I have finished the first 3 episodes of the Fallout Prime streaming service show. And I remember predicting based on the trailer that I reviewed that this show would be fucking terrible. So, was I right, at least so far? I'm not even halfway through, but there is something here. So let's start with the positives. First of all, it has Walton Goggins, just like I said in the trailer. It's directed by Jonathan Nolan, who's actually very talented. The cast, besides the female lead, is pretty good, and I gotta say, Ella Purnell, I think her name is, not that bad. Clearly, the show's done probably mostly on green screen, and it's mostly done well. Some effects are better than others. I plan on talking to you, at least for the first few reviews I do of this, mostly spoiler free. And if I do spoil things, it's shit you saw in the trailer. In the trailer, there is a Yaogwai. The Yaogwai effects are not very good. In the trailer, there's dudes in power armor. The power armor effects are good. In the trailer, Walton Goggins is clearly a ghoul. His makeup's passable. He doesn't make any attempt to do any kind of voice, but I do a decent ghoul voice myself, and I can't imagine doing long shooting hours talking like this. Hi, I'm a ghoul from Fallout, and I'm going to talk really raspy and fuck up my vocal cords for the entire team. Yeah, it's probably best that Walton Goggins and his nice, wonderful Southern accent, with his charm, stays intact. If his voice stays intact, it was probably the right decision. Okay, so immersiveness wise, how's the show? The sets are pretty fucking good. The power armor suits look pretty fucking good. They do some kind of silly things that they can't really do in the games. Like in the games, at least in Fallout 4, you can get this limited use jetpack. It looks like the power armor that the Brotherhood of Steel has is downright Iron Man tier shit, in both being completely fucking bulletproof, and yet you can get killed by an animal with claws wearing it, but you can't be shot to death by a man using explosive round ammunition. Just so you know, the rules may kind of not exist in this show. But is that a bad thing? Everybody knows Fallout as being kind of quirky, a little bit satirical here and there, zany, and very violent. What would I describe this show as? Quirky, a little bit, actually a lot bit, overly much satirical here and there, and incredibly violent. The characters are wacky and silly, and even the vault dwellers are kind of bizarre. Their culture is very much stupid, but in a somewhat understandable way. I find myself waffling back and forth between kind of liking some of this shit and mostly just not being offended by it. There's not really so far, and this is really rare for a Prime show, not a lot of race baiting, not a lot of gender baiting, not a lot of trying to wink at the audience and make a political commentary of some fucking kind. It's pretty much absent from the show, which is refreshing. Very refreshing. And the girl boss isn't really a girl boss. She gets in like a fight and gets seriously fucking injured. She encounters badass characters that know what they're doing and they overpower her. That's kind of refreshing. Like, she is not helpless, but she's also naive and stupid as fuck. And gets herself, and she's not just kung fu, punch kicking or shooting. Her gun doesn't even really do dick. It's not even a gun. It's some kind of tranquilizer dart thing. So it's cute, honestly. A lot of this show is cute. This show is clearly trying to be funny. There's a lot of scenes that go on for minutes on end that aren't adding up to literally anything but a gag. There are a lot of gag scenes. And are they funny? No, they're not. I smirked like twice in 3 episodes, laughed not at all. Mostly I just sat there and went, I know what you're going for, but you're kind of wasting my time. How is the plot and how does it move? Which really is the question, how good is the writing? It's dog shit. But it is far from the worst dog shit you've ever seen. In fact, it is so just middle of the road 4/5 out of 10 type writing that you probably won't notice it because you've been getting fed the worst fucking writing anybody's ever seen for 10 years in every genre of every film and TV show you've ever fucking watched that isn't like a medical drama or something jerking off women. You had nothing to look forward to. So you're probably going to encounter a lot of people who hail Fallout Season 1 as the second coming of Christ, fucking the kingdom of God incarnate, because it's not cancer. It might be radiation poisoning, but it's not cancer. But how does the plot move? Unfortunately, it is a series of unfortunate events type plot. Now, series of unfortunate events type plots can move. Well, one of my favorite TV shows, in fact, one of a lot of people's favorite TV shows, is Breaking Bad. And I used to call Breaking Bad Murphy's Law, the series, meaning anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And the hubris and stupidity and arrogance of characters is largely what moves the plot in Breaking Bad. There is not one plot beat that has occurred in 3 episodes of Fallout that was not moved solely and exclusively by the stupidity of a character or multiple characters. The plot, first of all, in 3 out of 8 episodes, again, this is another common sign of prime TV shows, is the plot doesn't fucking move, okay? We have a MacGuffin. The MacGuffin arrives kind of in the vicinity of all the major characters all at once in episode 1, and then that MacGuffin really doesn't move for 3 episodes. And the characters kind of juggle the MacGuffin between each other, and not because they're taking it from each other. In fact, mostly, besides a few scenes, the main characters of the A, B, and C plot don't interact much. They kind of just stumble into the next thing they need to get. People just keep happening onto each other. You know, like one of the Brotherhood of Steel guy just sort of decides to get out of his plane and literally says, I am bored, I want to shoot things, and stumbles onto the MacGuffin. And then the MacGuffin moves to a town where the girl boss character shows up, and I'm just calling her that jokingly because she's not a girl boss, and that's good. And she stumbles across it, and then she loses it to another character who loses it to a monster, and then the next character stumbles upon the monster, and it's just like this over and over and over and over again. And it's not... Basically, if you think about it just in pure skeleton plot beats, MacGuffin is in transit, MacGuffin exchanges between characters who are all fighting over the MacGuffin, and the MacGuffin makes very little progress along the track to its destination, because the MacGuffin needs to get somewhere for all 3 of the characters to fulfill what they're trying to do. And the MacGuffin is really just kind of stuck in the wasteland in a comedy routine. And it's stupid. There's only... there is the Brotherhood of Steel character. His plot doesn't make much sense. He is by far the best actor of the 3, and I'm including Walton Goggins in this. He's not the best actor so far, but his material to work with is very limited, and his character is very, very mysterious. His character is literally called The Ghoul, so it's natural that his plot, his arc is probably backloaded towards the back of the series. We start with the Vault Dweller character, and she is the least developed. She's just kind of naive. She's good-natured, but also kind of brave in the sense that she will dive into stupid situations with kind of limited motivation other than, hey, you know, that's kind of fucked up, and the entire world's fucked up. So she's like, that's kind of fucked up, I should probably intervene. And Ella Purnell, I don't think is a very good actress, but she's doing an okay job, and I don't think a lot is asked of her in this plot, other than to be kind of quirky and peculiar and fish out of water, and she's kind of doing the quirky and peculiar part okay. but I'm not really believing her as being baffled by or intimidated by or confused by what she encounters. She's not really selling it to me. The ghoul, Walton Goggins, is obviously just an asshole, and he's the guy who's getting at least some backstory in the fact that, they're showing how he was before the bombs fell because he's been around for 200 years. Obviously, he's changed a lot, so they're showing you this was a nice guy, now he's a bastard. You don't have a lot of information about the intervening time other than he's clearly had a fucking hard time of it and has existed by being a bastard, which is understandable in the universe. And then the Brotherhood of Steel guy is surprisingly like good-natured. The actor who's playing him is the most charming, and I really should have looked up his name because I'm not familiar with him. Black guy. He is acting as hard as he can in a series that a lot of the extras and a lot of character who comes in and has a speaking part and leaves are putting a lot of work. Walton Goggins, I'm not entirely sure what he's going for yet, or if he's trying that hard yet, but there's not a lot of meat on those bones. The girl is, an actress who's only been in Disney live action schlock, so I'm not expecting much from her. The black guy who is written, the Black Brother of Steel guy is written as stupidly as fucking you could possibly imagine. The dude's retarded. But the actor is trying so fucking hard to sell this guy as a human being with understandable, empathetic kind of motivations. But he's written like a fucking idiot. So it's... You know how, if you watched any of my reviews, I'm always looking to judge something based on what I like about it versus what I don't like about it. So you start every time at 5 out of 10, and then you kind of move forwards towards 10 or backwards towards 1, depending on good things and bad things. And the first 3 episodes of Fallout are the definition, the absolute perfect definition of a 5 out of 10. And the problems are largely in the writing. I want to mention just 2 more things that are a little bit more ancillary. Clearly, the entire look of this show was based solely on Fallout 4. So you got the Fallout 4 power suits, you got the Fallout 4 guns, which are fucking hideous. Like the ugliest, just like abominations. If you know anything about how a firearm works, and then you look at these weapons, it's an atrocity. Okay? It's a running joke online that Bethesda doesn't know how to design guns. That's a fact. They're terrible at it. And so they picked probably the worst example of Bethesda's guns, not counting Starfield, and used that as their model. The other thing is Fallout 4 has a very interesting contrast, especially versus New Vegas. New Vegas, obviously being set in a desert wasteland, is very washed out. I mentioned this in my trailer review. And it has that almost kind of Breaking Bad in Mexico kind of yellow-orange cast to it. And it's very classic. This goes all the way back to like kind of the cinematography techniques of Sergio Leone filming in the Italian desert. Very clean, kind of, crisp but washed out look, right? Fallout 4, conversely, has a rather kind of unique thing that gave it a really unique feel that I thought kind of positively of when it came out because it went so against the grain. Fallout 4 uses a very, very saturated color palette. All the colors are very rich and almost wet. They look like wet paint everywhere. That is the look of this TV show. Every primary color you see is just such an assault on the eyes in contrast because it's in a desert setting like New Vegas. But the entire aesthetic of every outfit, all the costumes, all the guns, all the things that you see are very the aesthetic of Fallout 4, which is set in a completely different environment and is very saturated. So the absolute contrast of like the blue vault suits and the reds and browns of the cowboy outfits and the silver plating on the Brotherhood armors and shit is very stark, and I don't know if it's good or bad or just queer. It's different, and is neither good or bad, but just kind of like that's an interesting design choice you did. But the attention to detail in these costumes and in these props that everybody is using, there was a lot of care went into this. Somebody who really gave a shit and really studied at least Fallout 4 really went, I want to recreate that in this TV show. And they tried very hard. The effort is very apparent. The power armor looks good. It looks believable. They're very clearly plastic parts, but they're sold pretty well in action and acting like this is a heavy, solid metal thing. And they try really hard to make sure you know that power armor is a big fucking deal. Okay, two other things I want to mention. I'm sorry, I know, because I look like I was winding up, but I remember these things are very important. Part of the worst stupidity of these characters is all of the characters are armed, and almost all the trouble they get into is forgetting they have a gun. The amount of times characters get into a physical fist fight with each other and with the environment and monsters and shit, when I'm like, you have a gun. Okay, you showed me that you have like wrist-mounted flamethrower / jetpack shit on your wrists like you were Iron Man, which is not in the game, but whatever, and you're not using them. There's a couple things where there's a few times where the power armor looks like it's not doing much. And I'm like, that's okay. You couldn't really like beat up people in the power armor in the game. Well, you could in New Vegas, but not in Fallout 4. Punching people doesn't fucking work in the power armor in Fallout 4. It's a game design thing, neither here nor there. But then there's times where the dude's hitting things or throwing things or kicking things or breaking down walls like the Kool-Aid Man. And these power armors make you look super fucking human, like you're Colossus from the X-Men. And then you get into another situation where you can't overpower something that you probably should be able to. So a lack of consistency bothers me, but a lot of people are probably going to be able to overlook that. But the forgetting you have a gun, okay, the amount of times where a character leaves something important behind and a bunch of fucking scrounger, scaver motherfuckers are coming around trying to take it from them, and they're like, I will overpower these men with my fists. I'm like, where is your gun? Did you forget you have a large fucking gun? Walton Goggins getting into some situation with some monster or some person, and I'm like, did you forget you could just shoot that guy? You have a lever action shotgun with explosive shotgun rounds on your back. Why are you not using the gun? Use the fucking gun. So the sheer stupidity of characters, very frequently, literally, I have forgotten that I am armed, is what's moving the plot along, and that's stupid. So and the last thing is, look, the best shows have A plot, B plot. A plot resolves, B plot resolves, or in an episodic serial where, not episodic, when something is serial and that the plot doesn't completely resolve in an episode but leads into the next, a serialization, okay? You want to have A plot, B plot. That gives you time to really richly do this with the characters, with the plot, with the movements, with mysteries and questions being answered or posed. This show has an A plot with Vault Dweller, B plot with Brotherhood of Steel Guy, C plot with Walton Goggins the Ghoul, D plot with the Vault, and then E fucking plot with flashbacks. That is the recipe for a clusterfuck, dear audience. And that's part of what is taking the show away from what could have been a very pleasant and welcome 7 out of 10 to a, hey, look, a 5 out of 10 that doesn't offend me. It's not an insult to me. It's not trying to sell me something. It's not chiding me. It's not trying to reinforce some kind of ideology or decry another. It's just being a zany action comedy that unfortunately is not funny and is not written very well at all. But everything else that is there, the cast, the high level of detail, the production value, the action, the really the loving attempt, even though, because I'm trying not to nerd out game wise, I'm not trying to say, hey, you're in the desert, why is there a gulper? A gulper is basically a mutated frog and or salamander. Salamanders don't live in this area. They live in, the area from the game you took them from, like in fucking Boston, like in cooler, wetter environments. Okay, I get that we're right on the ocean, but also everything up to that ocean is basically an extension of the Nevada and the fucking desert. Like, it's like, why didn't you use the crab? Okay, you can do the mud crab thing, but you chose the gulper. Like, I have a lot of that, but those are nitpicks. Those aren't really that important because this is not a highbrow show. This show is not trying to be a highbrow show. It's not trying to overachieve and missing the mark. It's schlock. It is pulp. It's fucking very, very aggressively stupid, but unapologetically stupid, deliberately stupid. It's supposed to be wacky. They told us in interviews that they just wanted it to be kind of wacky. And it is. It could be funny if somebody funny wrote it. It could be smart if somebody smart wrote it. But that just isn't the case. That's why it's a 5 out of 10. But it's a good mediocre. It's an acceptable mediocre. It's not delicious, but palatable. It's junk food. Seasoned with some pretty good... It's like fucking Ruffles cheddar potato chips. You know they're gross. You feel sick as fuck after you eat them. But going down, it's all right. That flavoring is addictive. I'm probably going to keep watching it after I fucking post this video. But 21 minutes is way long enough for 3. And hopefully I'll be more brief because I'm not going to have to reiterate all this shit I said about what it sucks at. And hopefully I'll have more positive to say about the show, about what it does well. Maybe I'll come back to you and say, hey, they finally made me laugh. One of these gag bits actually landed. Maybe one of these characters made a smart and relatable decision. Maybe somebody actually gets humanized. Walton Goggins is probably going to be the star of the show going forward, as his shit's all backloaded, obviously, and just there's teasers in the first 3 about who this guy is and why he's interesting. And since the plot really has not moved more than 2 or 3 steps in 3 episodes, I'm probably gonna have a lot more to say about plot. But so far, what I have to say is this show does a decent job of establishing itself, establishing its world, establishing its vibe. And its vibe is fucking retarded, and its world is horrifically violent and gratuitous, and the characters honestly kind of act like your average Joe Blow popping in New Vegas and fucking around. Because that's kind of what's going on, is a lot of fucking around. But not a bad, offensive fucking around, just hey, let's move it along. Where's my plot? Where's my characterization? Give me a little bit, okay? You got a skeleton, put some meat on it. That's all I have to say. Thanks for watching.